Section 5.2, Rates and Unit Pricing. You are shopping in a store and buying applesauce. One jar costs $2 for 10 ounces, and another jar costs $4.50 for 25 ounces. Which is the better buy? One way to find out is to compare their unit prices or unit rates. Unit rates compare a number with a single unit. So we are going to write both of these first of all as ratios. So the very first one, it costs $2 for 10 ounces. If I wanted to write this as a single unit, or if I want to go through unit pricing with unit rates, what I'm going to do is I am going to make sure that the bottom number is just equal to 1. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by 10 over 10. If I divide $2 by 10, that's going to be 20 cents. Once again, remember, if I'm dividing by 10, all I have to do is move the decimal point one spot over to the left. 10 divided by 10 gives me 1. So what this is saying is that this jar of applesauce costs 20 cents per ounce. And that is what is known as unit pricing or a unit rate. Oftentimes it could be written this way. You also might see it written this way, 20 cents per ounce. And you can see it written either one of those two ways. The other jar of applesauce is $4.50 for 25 ounces. So once again, that denominator needs to be equal to 1. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to divide by 25 over 25. That's going to give me a 1 on the bottom. And now when I go through and divide $4.50 divided by 25, if I do that, I'm going to get 18 cents. Now, I'll let you just go through and do the math, or you can just trust me as far as the math goes. 450 divided by 25 does give me 18 cents. So, the cost of this is 18 cents per ounce. And once again, I could write it the way I'm writing it right now in blue, or I could write it's 18 and then cents per ounce. And you'll see it written both ways in the book. So I can use unit pricing, and I see that the bigger jar of applesauce only costs me 18 cents per ounce, while the smaller jar costs me 20 cents per ounce. Let's do another example of unit pricing. Let's say that I have a package of 5 pencils that cost 95 cents. It's 95 cents for 5 pencils. What is the unit price or the unit rate? Well, I would say 95 cents for 5 pencils. And I need to make sure that denominator is equal to 1, so I'm going to divide by 5 over 5. And when I do that, 95 cents divided by 5 gives me 19 cents. 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. So the unit rate of this, it is 19 cents per pencil. And once again, it can be written the way I've just written it, or you could write, if you wanted to, 19 cents per pencil. And once again, you will see it written both ways in the book. Sometimes, when expressing unit rates, you might get a decimal or a mixed number, which is okay, because the denominator needs to be 1. Let's say someone goes for a walk, and they walk 13 miles in 4 hours. Well, if I wanted to, I could figure out how many miles they are walking per hour. In order to do that, I would need to divide by 4 over 4. So I change that 4 hour to a unit time of just 1 hour. So now I need to divide 13 divided by 4. If I do that, I'm going to do the math over here. 4 goes into 13 3 times. 4 times 3 gives me 12. I subtract, I get 1. And I could put down a 0 if I want to make this into a decimal. When I do that, now I'm going to ask how many times does 4 go into 10? It goes in 2 times. 4 times 2 gives me 8. I subtract, I get 2. I can drop down another 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times, and that gives me an answer of 3.25. So the answer to this would just be 3.25 miles per hour. And that might be the way that you could write the answer, 3.25 miles per hour. Now, when I first went through and did this, I said we could divide 13 divided by 4. And I chose to change that into a decimal. I could have, if I wanted to, kept it also as a mixed number. 4 times 3 gives me 12. I would have 1 left over. It would be 3 and 1/4. I could also give the answer as 3 1/4 miles per hour. And I could write it that way if I wanted to as well. Sometimes the directions in the book say to give the answer as a decimal. Sometimes it says to give the answer as a mixed number, and you need to be able to do both. Here's another example. An avid biker travels 156 miles in 8 hours. What is her unit rate? Or in other words, how many miles does she bike per hour? If I wanted to, I could write this as a ratio, 156 miles per 8 hours. So it's 156 miles to 8 hours. If I wanted to change this into a unit rate, I need to divide by 8 over 8 so that the denominator is equal to 1. And then I need to divide 156 divided by 8. If I go through and do that, 156 divided by 8, 8 goes into 15 one time. I subtract, I get 7. I bring down the 6. 8 goes into 76 9 times. 8 times 9 gives me 72. I subtract, I get 4. I bring down the 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times, and I get a remainder of 0. So my answer is 19.5. So the unit of rate is 19.5 miles per hour. And once again, I could write it as 19.5, or I could write it as 19 1/2 miles per hour. It just depends on what the directions are. If no directions are given as to which way to write it, you could write it either way. In order to give the unit rate or unit price of something, just remember that the denominator of your ratio always has to be equal to 1, and use that information to help find the answer. Please let me know if there is anything I can do to help as you work through this section. Thank you.